What's up, hardcore test preppers? I was on Twitter today and saw something interesting from the ACT. They said the best preparation for the ACT is taking rigorous core classes. Now, I had a problem with that because when a lot of people hear statements like that, what they hear is taking rigorous core classes is all I got to do. If I do that and maybe am a good reader, read a lot, I'm good. I'm covered for the ACT. Nothing else is necessary. Well, that is not true, and I'd like to give you 7 reasons why. Number 7, insane time pressure. As just one example, on the reading section of the ACT, you've got 53 seconds, actually a little less, a tiny bit less than 53 seconds per question. And that does not include time to read the 4 pretty gnarly passages that, of course, you have to somehow make your way through in order to answer those questions. I realize that you have time tests in your rigorous core classes at school, but nothing like this. And by the way, we're talking about a really, really long test as well. Number 6, selective memory. I don't mean your selective memory. I mean the test's selective memory. And by the way, everything I'm saying here applies equally to the SAT. I'm not unfairly singling out the ACT. So, yeah, these tests have selective memory. And what I mean by that is out of the myriad possible topics they could ask you about, given all the different things you've studied in your illustrious high school career, they pick out a select few. Taking rigorous core classes isn't going to give you any idea which select few, what narrow band of possible topics are going to be covered on the ACT or the SAT. For example, the ACT likes to test you on comma rules for essential and non-essential phrases, or the comma rules for dealing with dependent clauses and independent clauses. And by the way, the comma rules change depending on which of those clauses comes first. Now, I know lots of well-educated, very literate, articulate adults. Yeah, they mess it up all the time. I see it every day. The only reason I notice it is because I'm a complete grammar nerd. The point here is that, again, there are a number of different things you could study, focus on, work out, make sure you have right. There are thousands of different things you could make sure you had in line before the test. And because there are so many, and because it's not obvious which one you should study and which one it's okay to forget about for a while, you've got to know. And your core classes aren't going to tell you. Number 5, hide the ball, Iron Man mode. Let me ask you this. How many of your core classes have taught you how to deal with, say, distracting phrases or dummy subjects when quickly scanning through a sentence to see if there are any subject-verb agreement issues? Oh, and by the way, the sentence will be worded in a possibly awkward way as another sort of method of throwing you off the scent. Or how many of your teachers in these rigorous core classes have in their employ a massive team of really bright PhDs whose full-time job it is to write really tricky questions, questions that are misleading, or passages that contain grammar issues that are buried behind all sorts of obfuscation. There's an SAT word for you. I'm going to go out on a limb and say the answer is 0. But those are the situations you're going to face on the SAT and the ACT. So if that's the case, then, once again, your rigorous core classes aren't preparing you for the test. Number 4, weird undisclosed rules. So on SAT or ACT reading, for example, you've actually got to read the passages in a kind of bizarre way. You have to read them in an almost hyper literal way if you want to do really well on that section of the test. Now, I'm pretty sure the teachers in your rigorous core classes aren't teaching you that about the ACT or the SAT. And I'm also fairly certain they're not teaching you a hyper literal method of interpretation at all. I'm talking about, say, your English teachers. Most likely, what you've been taught throughout high school is a method of interpretation that actually runs counter to that. A method of interpretation that is pretty subjective, where you can have one opinion about the passage and interpret it one way, and one of your classmates, multiple classmates can interpret it in different ways, and you can sort of all be right. Don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking that. What I'm saying is that is not what's going on ACT reading or SAT reading. So if that's the method of interpretation that you've learned, that's now become a habit when you read passages, not only does that not prepare you, it hurts you. Because in order to do well on ACT reading and SAT reading, you have to unlearn those habits of interpretation and start reading the passages in a much more literal, strict way. And take it from me, as a test prep tutor, that is much easier said than done. So nope, when it comes to SAT and ACT reading, your rigorous core classes aren't helping you. Number 3, holistic grading. So in high school, a lot of your teachers grade you holistically, which is cool. That just means that they look at the whole paper. Let's say you've written a paper or done a homework assignment. And when they're assigning you grades, they don't just pick out a couple grammar errors and rigidly, strictly calculate a score regardless of the bigger picture. No, they look at the whole project and assign you a score that's appropriate based on all of the information. If your paper, for example, is good on the whole, they're not going to sweat, maybe, most likely, a couple grammar errors here or there, or even some misspellings. That is not the case on the ACT or the SAT. You either get that grammar question right or you get it wrong. You either get credit or you don't. There's nothing holistic about that. Number 2, noise. Let's talk about the science section of the ACT as a prime example of what I mean by noise. If you read through the science section and you understand what's really going on, by the way, it's not primarily a science section, it's actually more of a reading section. It's just a different kind of reading. It's a reading that involves charts and graphs and some scientific lingo. But most of the scientific jargon, especially the crazy jargon that's super intimidating, that freaks you out, most of that jargon is totally extraneous. It's unnecessary. It's not there for any reason except to freak you out and distract you. In other words, it's noise. Your high school teachers in your rigorous core curriculum classes don't often throw in a ton of noise to throw you off. So once again, those classes aren't going to help you be ready for the SAT or ACT. And last but not least, counterexamples. Have you ever met anyone, or maybe you are this person, who does really well in your rigorous core classes, but can't seem to crack the ACT or the SAT? You are stuck, and your score is stuck at a place that you're not happy with and that you don't feel is in line with the types of grades you're getting at school. Now, if these core classes at school were really preparing you for the test, how could this happen? How could it happen? Oh, I know, it couldn't. So there you have it, the 7 reasons why taking rigorous core classes is not the best way to prepare for the ACT or the SAT. Please don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you shouldn't take rigorous core classes. Of course you should take rigorous core classes, and of course you should get A+ in all of them. I'm also not suggesting that reading is a waste of time. Thanks for watching. If you like the video, please like and subscribe. If you have any questions about anything I said or about the ACT or the SAT, put them in the comments below and I will definitely answer them. And until next time, bye-bye.